My paranormal experiences started when I was 8. However, most recently, it has become the strongest experience I've experienced. My name is Chrissy. I live in London, England, and I live in a Victorian house converted into 3 flats, and I am the ground floor. These houses have quite a lot of history. They were built in the 1800s and they were built as family houses, but most have now been broken down into flats. I moved here around 12 years ago, and as soon as I moved in, I would think a few days after, I smelt very, very strong smell of cigarettes. And it seemed like almost someone sitting next to me smoking. Now, I don't smoke myself, so when I smell smoke, I know immediately that smoke, and it's not a smell I particularly like. And the smell just seemed to follow me everywhere. However, when other people came into my home and I was smelling smoke, they couldn't smell it. And it was just so strong, and I was quite astonished that no one else could smell it. At first, I didn't count it to paranormal. I tried to make logical sense out of it. I know that previous tenant had smoked a lot, and I tried to sort of say, is this a logical explanation? I was trying to look for logical explanations, and I thought maybe they smoked so much that the smoke had got stuck in the air and was wafting around. But then I thought, if that's the case, everyone should be able to smell it. But it was me that was smelling it. I sort of put it out of my mind, but it was always there, and it was always a question, what is going on here? What is this? Who is smoking? What is this? And then I got the feeling as time went by in my house that someone was watching me, particularly in the kitchen when I'd be washing up plates and dishes. I'd just get a cold in my back, like a real tingling starting from my neck. And it felt like someone was just behind me watching me. Of course, when I turned around, there was no one there. I felt it in the lounge, but the strongest in the kitchen. And with that, the cigarette smell lingered. And that's when I realised something wasn't quite right in the house. It was quite cold. Again, I attributed the cold to it being a Victorian property. These properties are not well insulated. There's bound to be drafts. I think in my mind, I was trying to rationalize what was happening in the house. I didn't really want to accept, I think, looking back, that this was paranormal, although I have experienced paranormal since the age of 8. But I think after a while I had to, because the feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger. And then one day I saw a shadow person. It was male. It was just a quick couple of minutes it lasted on the wall. And then I knew that this was a male spirit. I knew it was a male spirit. And once I knew that, I just put it to the back of my mind. I didn't think any more about it, although the feeling of being watched and the smoke continued. And things were quite calm in the house, I have to say. Things were calm. And then one day I had gotten up from my bed. It was in the morning. I just walked to the lounge. I have 2 bookcases full of books, and they're quite tightly packed in. And I saw my books on the floor. Now, it looked like somebody had pushed out the books. And I just looked at it and I thought, this is very strange. But again, I tried to rationalize things. Didn't automatically think this was paranormal, didn't connect it to the male spirit in the home. But I then questioned, how were the books going to fall out? Because the books were so tightly packed in, and it literally looked like someone had just taken out the books and just thrown them all over the place. They were everywhere. I put the books back and continued on feeling this feeling. I didn't give it much thought. In the back of my mind, I knew the spirit was there, and I knew it was a male spirit, and I think I acknowledged that it was there, but it was just very calm. didn't do anything other than the books obviously being pushed off. And then in February of this year, I had my bathroom upgraded. And that's when things took a turn for the worst, you could say. Because from when the bathroom was being upgraded, I started to hear really, really strange noises. It was the bathroom units had been taken out and put in a bag in the lounge, and it felt like someone was going through them because they're steel. You can hear when someone's rustling through them. And immediately I went to the lounge, and of course there was no one there, nothing there. And it was just very strange, creaky kind of noises I'd not heard before. And again, when I sat in the lounge, this cigarette smell was stronger than ever it had been. And it seemed like when I sat down, that spirit was sitting next to me, smoking. And it literally felt like someone sitting next to me smoking. And I felt the cold as well. There were times when I came in to sit down to watch television, and the television would turn on by itself. Literally, the remote control was nowhere near me. So the TV would turn on. And then when I switched off the TV, sometimes it would again turn on by itself. It done that a couple of times. There was a time where I was watching TV, and what I can only describe as what sounded like a disembodied voice. I couldn't really capture what it said, but it sounded like it was coming from above me. It was a man's voice, I knew that, but I really strained to hear. It was very quick. I really strained to hear what it was. I couldn't make it out. And in my mind was thinking, am I going crazy? But at the same time, I knew the male spirit was there, and whatever the upgrade from the bathroom have obviously caused things to stir. In the bedroom, when I was sleeping, I think the most scariest experience for me was hearing a dog growl, and it was coming from my bed. Again, I tried to look for logical explanations, but there really isn't a logical explanation for a dog growling in your bedroom when you don't have any pets. I don't have dogs. I don't have cats. To me, that was one of the most scariest paranormal experiences in my life. I didn't know what it was. I was scared, thinking that is this, a demon? Is this? I didn't connect it with the male spirit because I didn't know what this was. I knew it was something a bit strange, but I didn't connect it with the male spirit. I also had a feeling that the male spirit was in my room. That's where he liked to stay, because when I was sleeping, there'd be tapping on my chest of drawers. There'd be a lot of noise in one corner of my room. And when the bathroom upgrade happened and I heard the dog growling, that's when I then felt the spirit try to touch me, try to put his arms around me. And it was the most weirdest sensation. It was cold. Whenever he was near, it was cold. But previous to the bathroom upgrade, he'd never tried to touch me. After the bathroom upgrade, he actually tried to touch me. And what I can describe to you in terms of what the cold felt like, imagine the coldest day when it's snowing and you are freezing. It's not even that kind of cold. It's a cold that travels right through your insides and reverberates every part of your body. It's really hard to describe, but it's a cold I've never ever felt before. And it was frightening. It was very, very frightening. I really, really felt scared. I didn't know what was going on. I knew it was the male spirit, and I knew the bathroom upgrade had clearly upset him, because it was just getting worse and worse. Again, one day after the bathroom upgrade, the books. Now, I had been sleeping and I had never heard the books come out the first time. And the second time he did it, I still didn't hear the books come out that bookshelf. And I got up one day again. The books had been just literally chucked all over the place from the bookshelf. It would have made a noise, but I never heard anything. I was at the stage where I was beginning to get quite fed up. I took the books and I put it back, and I did swear at the spirit and told the spirit to leave me alone. When I did that, I saw the books with my own eyes fly off the bookshelf and on the floor again. And I was just so stunned. I have never, even though I've experienced the paranormal, I've never seen a spirit move things. The spirit in front of my eyes just literally chucked the books. And in the one shelf where the books hadn't even come off, he chucked that shelf as well. It was terrifying, if I'm being honest. Really, really terrifying. I felt like I was really, really like it mentally. It started to impact me a lot because I didn't want whatever it was that this was hanging around me. And he seemed to want to be around me all the time. He wouldn't leave me alone. There were times where before the upgrade, I only smelt the cigarette smell in the home. But now after the upgrade, whenever I went outside the house, I began to smell the cigarette smell, which tells me that he follows me sometimes out of the house to wherever I was going, and it was there. And then things stepped up with the cigarette smell as well, because one time I was sitting in the sofa watching TV, and he sat next to me, and I could feel his presence there, and he was smoking, and it felt like he blew the smoke on my face, and I'm not a smoker. So when that happened, I physically coughed. Physically. And I was just stunned at how I could cough at something that wasn't there, if that makes sense, because the cigarette wasn't there, but he was smoking it and I physically coughed. So it's the first time I have felt physical sensations from the paranormal. I've never felt that before. I was really, really scared. I didn't feel my home was safe. I mean, he never harmed me as such. I didn't sense there was a sort of a malice or evil in him, but nevertheless, I really began not to feel safe. I really began not wanting to come home if I went out or staying out later. I think it began to affect my mental health. My son then started to say that he could hear things, that he was going to the lounge one day and he heard a man's laughter. My son's only 9, and I was trying to protect my son from it, and I knew what it was, but I was trying to say to my son, oh no, it must be the neighbour. It's just your imagination, don't worry. He would say to me that when he's sleeping, someone would be stroking his back, and whatever it was wouldn't leave him alone. And I remember even as a baby, he would be giggling and laughing with something or someone that I couldn't see, but he'd be there giggling and talking in his baby language. And the times where the TV switched on and off, he wasn't there when that happened. But I remember he was probably about 5 and he said to me, Mummy, I've got a little friend. I've got a new friend. And I said, oh. And he said, the friend, he's very naughty. When I switch on the TV, he switches it off. Or when I switch it off, he switches it on. And that's when I got really really sort of startled, because this has happened to me. And when I asked my son to tell me more about his friend, he said, oh, I wouldn't understand. He wouldn't tell me. And again, I know children have their imaginary friends when they're younger, but I truly believe it was the spirit, and the spirit was coming to my son. And there was a time where he was in the bathroom, I was in the kitchen, and we both clearly heard a man's voice coming from our bedroom. Again, I was too far away from the bedroom to hear what the voice said, but it was clear as day. And of course, there was nobody in the room. There was, I was in the kitchen, my son was in the bathroom. My son heard it too, and my son said, Mum, somebody just spoke from the bedroom. And again, I knew what it was, but I was trying to protect him and said, oh no, it's probably the neighbours. He said, no, Mum, it sounded like it came from where your wardrobe is in your room. So now the spirit was kind of taking this to a next level and trying to communicate with us. I think at this point, when it started to reach out to my son, I got really, really scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want it impacting my son because it was already beginning to impact me. I have a friend, she's a medium. I called her, I told her what was going on, and she came. And as soon as she came in, she's a very good medium. She's seen paranormal since the age of 2, and she's been doing this work a long time. As soon as she came in, she said immediately that it's an old man, it's a male man. She told me his name, Jim, and she said that he used to live here and he died here of cancer, and it was smoke related. He used to smoke a lot of cigarettes. And I said to her, well, that's what would explain the smell of smoke. She said, yeah, that he died of the cigarettes related to cancer, and he died alone. He was estranged from his family, and he's very confused. He's very alone. He didn't even know he had passed away till she came and told him. And when I moved in, she said my energy is like what she described, it's like soft and nice. And he, being lost and confused, saw that about my energy and sought comfort in my energy. And that's what he's been trying to do. He thinks that I could have helped him. I could help him. But my friend said he needs to go to the light. He's been very earthbound. And the reason why this is all started from the bathroom upgrade is he didn't want it to happen. He still thought this was his house. So she said that is why he wants you to acknowledge him. But it just confirmed to me that I wasn't crazy. There was something that I knew it, but it confirmed to me everything that had been going on in the house. She said to me that he is very protective of me. He sees me as a daughter, and he's therefore wanting to be around me all the time. But it's not good because it feels like he formed an attachment, not just to this house that he lived in, but also to me. And that's not good. So we did a sage cleansing of the house, and we lit a candle with my friend. My friend opened a portal to the light, as she described it, in my front door, and she said to him, you need to go to the light. This is the light. You don't belong here. You need to go. She was going to do a banishment on the first visit, but she told me he told her not to, that he wouldn't bother me anymore, that he's just there to protect me. And, he's a very earthbound spirit. He's attached to me. He's attached to the house, but he won't hassle me anymore. He'll leave me alone. So my friend said, okay, we won't do a banishment because you've said that, but you need to go to the light. And it's okay if you come here time to time, but don't bother her. Just leave her alone. Just go to the light. In the light is where people can help you. Now that day, as soon as she had gone home, and I was coming through that front door after I'd put her in the taxi, I felt him right at the door where she'd created that portal. I smelt the smoke and I smelt him, and it told me that he wasn't planning to go anywhere. Even though she had shown him the light, he wasn't planning to go anywhere. And then things got worse. He made her this promise that he wouldn't bug me anymore, but obviously, clearly, that wasn't the case. He continued to try to talk to me, to try to talk to my son. He would turn lights off and on constantly in the house. The lights would be off and I'd go out somewhere. I'd come back to the lights bright as ever through the whole house. One time he switched off an actual switch that connected a lot of electrics. So I was trying to figure out what was going on with electrics, and I found out that he'd actually switched off a plug, and clearly he was having a bit of a joke and a laugh with me. But he wanted me to acknowledge him, and I wasn't going to acknowledge him because he needed to go to the light. But he was doing everything to get my attention, every single thing possible. And my friend told me to make sure I got amethyst for protection, which is by my bed. And I'm Catholic, so I have my crosses that are blessed. But I knew he wasn't a harmful spirit. It was just an annoying spirit. And it was really getting to me and really, really getting me down. It felt like he wouldn't leave me alone. But also, nobody else could sense him apart from my medium friend. No one that came to this house could sense him but me. And yet he was there. He's always here. And the dog belonged to him. My friend confirmed that he had a dog. That was his companion. When he lived here, he lived with his dog. And so the spirit of his dog continues in the house as well. And that's when I hear the growling in the night. But after my friend left, I actually felt the dog. So one day I was sitting in the lounge. He was next to me smoking. I sensed that. And then the dog was on my lap. It's very bizarre how I could feel a spirit dog in my lap. But I felt the fur and I saw the dog momentarily. It was kind of in the room, black dog, little dog, and it went under my bed. So I saw it with my own eyes, but I had to consistently tell the spirit now to leave me alone, that I don't want to have things like what he's doing happening to me. It's annoying me. I consistently told him to go to the light where he could be helped. Then he started turning paintings and pictures on the walls upside down. I never saw this because that would happen when I would be out the house. I would go out the house and come back to a picture that had been turned upside down. And that was really, really frustrating. It seemed like he was having a joke and a laugh with me to get a reaction. And the more I gave that reaction, the more things he would do. He'd start hiding things, and then they would turn up in very strange and bizarre places. He would start hiding my son's things just moving around. And then I said to him, I think he could sense that I knew when he was around because of the cigarette smell. And the very weirdest thing was when I said to him, I don't want him around anymore. He needs to leave this house because this is not his house anymore. This is my house. He could sense that obviously when the cigarette smell came, I knew that was him. Now, the bathroom had been freshly painted in February. The paint had dried. It no longer smells of fresh paint. But then what he tried to do was, after I could sense that the cigarette smell was there, he tried to disguise himself in another kind of smell, like the freshly painted smell. It was very strange. I don't know how he did it, but my friend explained to me that spirits can mimic set smells, and they can, like a recording, they can get a smell. So when the bathroom was freshly painted, they can record that smell and actually then project it, which I never realized that they could do. But that's what he was doing to disguise the fact that he was around me. And it took a while for my friend to come back because she was quite busy. But in the meantime, I was really, really struggling with all this. And she kept telling me to tell him to go to the light. He wouldn't. She did say he's a very earthbound spirit. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He wants to stay put. So then she came back. Now, this was a few months later, so I'd already been going through all sorts of things that I described for a good few months. It was beginning to affect my mental health. She came back, and this time she did a banishment to banish him to the light. And she explained to me that we're doing a good thing. It's not a bad thing we're doing, but it's banishment is that he can't come anywhere near my energy or my son's energy again, or anyone else's energy in this house. So basically it was kind of a permanent barring, she described it. So we again did a sage cleansing, and my flat has always been very cold and very dark. And again, I attributed it to the fact that it's old, it's Victorian, it's quite drafty. But when she did the banishment, we did a sage cleansing, and then we used a Tibetan sound bowl. We went through and made that sound, which is a cleansing sound, throughout my home. And then she has spirit guides. Those are the guides that have been with her throughout her life. She had told me the spirit guides took him to the light and he will not bother me anymore. And as soon as that happened, I felt the energy in my home change. It got lighter and it got warmer. I was quite amazed how quickly the energy turned. And she told me it was dark and cold in this house because he was there draining out the energy. He was there making it cold and dark. But as soon as she said he's gone now, the energy changed. It was very light, very warm. Since this has happened, he's gone. I've smelt the smoke a few times and I've asked my friend why is that, and she said she doesn't know why, but when she did a banishment for someone else, they continue to experience similar things that they'd experienced for a bit, but then it goes away after a while. And to be honest, I don't smell the cigarette smell anymore like how I used to, and it's very occasional it'll pop up, and as soon as it pops up it goes away. I definitely don't hear voices anymore. I don't have paintings being turned upside down. So it seems like he's gone. He's completely gone to the light. And I've prayed for him. I hope he finds peace there in the light. You know, it is sad how he died all alone and that he didn't know that he'd passed away. But, you know, now he's gone, I feel a sense of peace in this house. I feel happier. And she has also said when she came that there is another spirit in my home. My neighbour a long time ago told me he saw a Victorian lady in his flat. I didn't take much note of it, but then when my friend came, she told me about the same Victorian lady, very pretty, affluent lady that's here, but I've hardly felt her. I felt her a couple of times, but she doesn't bother me like the old man did. So she's just free to come and go. My friend said she's been in the light already. She just passes through because there's a park near me. And in life, she went to that park. She walked in that park with her friends. So in death, she does the same thing. And she's very intrigued about a painting, apparently, that I have in my flat of a girl. I bought that on holiday in Sri Lanka, and this girl looks exactly like her. So she will come here and she will stare at that painting. And she's asked my friend, she doesn't understand why I've got a painting of her, but obviously it's not her. It's just some random lady that's been painted, but apparently has a striking resemblance to this spirit. And the spirit haunts the whole of this building, but she's very discreet. I don't hardly feel her. You know, my friend has said maybe in the Victorian times, this wasn't actually a house. This was probably an old hotel or an inn, because the lady, she didn't live here, but she visited here many times in her life. And she's very curious because she's from a different era. So she's very curious about what the place looks like, the different things. And I remember one time when I was sitting down to work, I work from home, I felt someone looking over my shoulder, but it wasn't the old man. I felt it was her. It was the female spirit. And she's looking at my laptop, being very curious because obviously they didn't have laptops in Victorian times. So it's more curious with her, but she's not harmful and she definitely doesn't annoy me. But when I first moved in here and I got my burglar alarm, the burglar alarm used to go off all the time. And I now realize it was probably the lady, because the lady likes to stand by my back door. My friend said where the garden is, and that's where my alarm is. So my alarm was continually going off. But now it doesn't go off anymore. So I think she's found a way to evade that alarm. But she is the only spirit now, my friend said, that is in this house, the whole house, not just my flat. And she will pass through now and then. And she's absolutely, my friend described her as a lovely lady, and she's not here to bother anyone. But the old man has now gone, and yeah, I mean, it's an experience I will never forget. It's been my strongest paranormal experience yet. And it's been the experience where I've actually felt the physicalities of the spirit, the cold, the intense cold that I've never felt before. It's a cold like you would never feel. It's not a cold that's like, you know, when it's snowing, it's freezing. It's not that kind of cold. It's a cold that goes through your whole body. So I've never felt that before. So physically, this has been also the strongest paranormal experience I have had. So that's my story.
If you've had a paranormal experience and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us by going to myparax.com. That's myparaex.com. Thanks for listening.